Welcome to Film Phreeks. This is Justin Llewellyn.
And Eddie Williams.
And tonight we're going to be doing a review of one of the most talked about upcoming I say live action, but it's pretty debatable this time. It's actually a 100% CGI remakes of the original Disney animated film of The Lion King. And this time it's directed by Jon Favreau and stars quite a big cast. You got Donald Glover, you got Chiwetel Ejiofor, you got
it brings back James Earl Jones.
Yeah, as Mustafa, and you also got Beyonce and all them. And this story is, well, I mean, what's there really to say? If you've seen the original animated movie, it's pretty much the same plot. It's basically a loose story of also inspired by Hamlet, where you have in the jungle, you have the Lion King himself, Mustafa, who's trying to run his kingdom and everything.
He's keeping the pride at bay.
Yeah, and then he's having to deal with his brother Scar, who is trying to take advantage of being the king instead of him. And then you have Mustafa's son Simba, who is, as you see in the film, he's the one that doesn't want to really be a king. He just wants to live a better life. And I mean, and then basically the rest of the film deals.
Really, yeah, it's self-explanatory. He just wants to, he's wanting to be king, but he doesn't know how to take that kind of thing. And then if you saw the cartoon, this shouldn't be, it's not spoilers at this point because everybody's seen The Lion King.
Yeah.
Scar kills his dad. He goes on this. Then Simba is pretty much thought dead, and Simba comes back years later and fights his uncle.
Yeah, and it's very also loosely based on the story of William Shakespeare's Hamlet as well. Now, here's a little backstory. Now, growing up, the original animated Disney film of The Lion King, even to this day, even watching it back last night, still is up as one of my top favorite films growing up of Disney.
Oh, yeah, easily. I think everybody can agree that Lion King is probably one of the best Disney films ever made. It is so iconic. I mean, godly, it spawned classical musics by Elton John, which we sing today. There's people who make mockeries of the scenes, whether you raise your baby up, I've seen people do that at their weddings and shit like that. I mean, people mock this movie.
Yeah.
Because it's so iconic.
And also one of the most legendary things that, well, at the time when I was a kid, I didn't really know who it was, but the musical score also by Hans Zimmer, even to this day, is so iconic and just very emotional, and it gives you that really, heartwarming vibe. And, it was...
mentioned the cast.
The cast as well.
And got in there. Amazing.
Yeah. Because in the original film, you had, James Earl Jones, you had Jeremy Irons playing one of the best villains of all time, and you also had, Rowan Atkinson and all them, and Matthew Broderick and all them. And so Lion King was always one of those films growing up that, even though I haven't seen in a long time, I still, have fun memories of everything. And we begin this trend
and its animation still holds up to that.
Yeah, even to this day, like the beautiful facial features they do on them, and even the dark, gritty scenes, like that scene where you see the, when they go to the elephant place or whatever, graveyard.
Basically Death Valley type shit, where all the carcasses and stuff.
Yeah. And then we've been in the last few years, we begin this trend where we've been seeing a lot of live action, Disney remakes of the original animated films, which started out a few years ago. You had Cinderella, then you had Jon Favreau, who did this film. He did Jungle Book, which I haven't seen, but I heard that one was actually pretty good.
It was. It was really good.
And then you got Beauty and the Beast, and then you got Aladdin and Dumbo. And when I got the trailers to this, when I seen the trailers to this coming out and I heard about it, it did kind of interest me a little bit because, at least from the trailers, I liked at least the idea that Favreau was trying to make the animals look more animal-like and photorealistic. Yeah. Which I'm all for the idea for that.
The cinematography, I was really anxious to see and how pretty he was going to shoot. Show the fucking cinematography of the Sierra and all that, the savannas and stuff.
Yeah, and then you also, one of my biggest things too was that they actually not only got back James Earl Jones, who played Mustafa in the original, to return, but you also got Hans Zimmer coming back doing the score. So it was almost like Favreau wanted to basically keep the original film at bay with, because he loved it so much, he didn't want to change really much of it, which I can agree on a certain artistic point that you wanted to try to do that. But upon seeing the film, I can honestly say that this is one of those films that when you do too much of a remake, you go into carbon copy territory, and it becomes a very, very bland and very uninspiring remake.
Yeah, upon seeing it myself, I will say that, it was very disappointing. This was probably the highest hopes everybody had out of every Disney film they were going to do, and this movie was so bland and just blah.
Yeah.
Forgettable.
It is, yeah. And out of the remakes that I've seen of Disney, and I'm going to call this a CGI remake because even though it's technically a live action remake, the whole film is pretty much CGI. So I'm going to go on a limb and say it's a full CGI remake. And but basically, out of the remakes they've done, this is probably my least favorite, definitely.
Exactly. I actually thought Aladdin and Dumbo this year was a lot better.
Yeah, I did too. But I
ain't saying much because we thought those were average.
Yeah. But to get my pros out of the way, I will say that the biggest strong outs I have the most is the actual effects they use, because I do like the way that the actual creatures resemble like the real life animals and stuff. And
yeah, it looks like he actually used real life animals.
Yeah,
I believe they kind of did. They were able to do a lot of detail with real animals, and that's what they did with the film. Which I will say that while there is a con with that, I will say the attempt and how it looked visually looked good.
It did.
It really did
and
look good.
The cinematography was also great.
I got to say that James Earl Jones, I was glad he got him back as Mufasa. I think that's the only guy who could pull that off.
Yeah, and then you also have like some of the other performances, like the performances of the cast are fine. It's just that it kind of goes into a pro and con kind of thing. But for the performances are fine. But I think the ones that I think stood out the best for me were Seth Rogen and the other guy that played Puma and Timon. Because those guys, they actually brought some at least personality to their characters, and they at least, actually brought a lot more comedy that I was actually relieved to see, because the rest of the film was played too straight and very just depressing.
Puma and the other guy, I can't remember the muskrat's name.
Yeah, Timon.
Yeah, they both looked. They were probably the highlight of it. Other than that, I was pretty bored with everything else. Yeah,
and I will say that the cinematography and also Hans Zimmer score, it does still look good, and I'm glad to hear we still have his score in there and everything. And James Earl Jones, it's good to see him back as Mustafa and everything.
Yeah.
It's but that's what I'm saying. The movie has the look of the original Lion King, but it lacks. This is now we get to our cons. It lacks a lot of the heart.
I'll basically tell you right now, the story and everything from it, even the acting and everything, while it's there, not the worst you've ever seen, it does come off as a dollar store brand.
It does. It's like this film is basically, and to be honest, this is not on. I mean, this is in that similar level, but it's not as god awfully bad as this movie. It's the equivalent of watching the shot-for-shot remake of Psycho, where you go from
that's one of my cons right there. There we go. I thought we learned our lesson with the Psycho, the Omen, and there's some other ones I can't remember at this time where they do the shot for shot. And be honest with you, if you're going to do shot for shot, it comes off to me as, why even do it in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, because to get where do I start? Like, the first problem I have from the get-go is the story itself. This is the biggest problem I have with this. Other than maybe certain things that Favreau changes, probably with the hyenas, in certain, like, the way in context-wise, this film is literally the exact same fucking plot. They put no originality in. They don't really change much. They really just do the exact same plot as the original.
They do, and you can almost line up the lines with the original. like the opening, everything, even the ending. It's like, oh my god, this is literally fucking shot for shot.
Yeah.
The words are the same. I mean, they didn't even change some of the fucking screenwriting.
It was almost like they took the exact same script and was just like, all right, here you go.
Yeah, it's just like, yeah, that's what I'm thinking John did. Was like, here, that script they wrote for 94, I was able to get in Hollywood's vault. And they let me borrow it, so read this and that's what you're going to say.
Yeah.
That right there is lazy. And it just tells me it should have never been made. If you have to do that, it doesn't need to be made.
Yeah, and the other thing I say, too, is that the only benefit I can say that they wanted to kind of go for on paper was in this time, because in the original film we were dealing with the hyenas that were under working for Scar and stuff. In this one, they attempted to do a slight change where you have like a main hyena that's leading the group and stuff. And at first, they're kind of against like working with Scar and all that. So that's really the only thing I noticed that they kind of changed from the original film. But they still keep the same story, like going to the same pathway.
That right there can be glossed over so quickly because that's in and out.
That's what I'm saying. It's a completely it's like one dialogue scene, and then other than that, it's the exact same fucking movie.
Exactly. Here's my other big complaint I like to say as part of my cons. This pissed me off. All right. I know that I know that they couldn't get Jeremy Irons back, and they wanted to go with other than getting James Earl Jones, they kind of wanted to go with a fresh new face. I think they were going for more cultural oriented, because it's in Africa.
Yeah.
That's not no issue. However, the guy who played Scar was incredibly fucking weak.
Yeah,
and
he was.
I have to say that it is kind of weird that I thought Mufasa sounded more intimidating than Scar did.
I did too, yeah. And also,
it's like I'm literally listening. It's like fucking casting fucking Pee Wee Herman as Scar. Like it was high pitched. It was like it didn't make. It's like, huh? Well, Mufasa sounds more scary than you do.
Well, and that's the problem too.
And I didn't even like the fucking look. I didn't even like the look of Scar.
No, I didn't either. Because really, if I mean, yeah, he's supposed to. He's also a lion like Scar, like Mustafa is. But the problem is that, unlike the original animated movie, where you can tell the fucking difference night and day, here, other than they make him a little more like grayer than some of the other lions, he literally looks the fucking same as everyone else. I'm like, that's not Scar. He's supposed to stand out like as an actual.
I said, voice acting was really bad with Scar, and then also the musical tones with him when he did the Be Prepared.
Yeah,
didn't sound that good.
No, and that's a factor too. Is that it's hard to really compare because they're the same movie. But like the original film, the reason why Jeremy Irons' voice worked was because, first of all, he had personality to his character. He was very, he had a lot of charisma to himself. And he was also, when he was doing a lot of the, trick and everything, you can tell that there were still parts of him that sounded empathetic. There was at least like a hidden part of him that he sounded like he actually cared. This one, he comes across like so fucking generic, like fucking Aladdin's Jafar, that I was like, you really just could have got the same guy. There's really no fucking difference here.
I know. It was just in the line, and that's where that comes work so bad with Scar, because he was the worst of it. His voiceover guy, you can hear he was fucking incredibly bored.
Yeah, and it also comes into my biggest other.
Yeah, just reading on the lines. Yeah, your uncle, your daddy did this. I'm king, and I'm like, oh my god, this is so fucking boring.
Yeah,
it's depressing him talk.
Yeah, and the other biggest thing
the other cast members, while they're not bad, a lot of them come off as kind of like, Yeah. I mean, even James Earl Jones, and I don't blame him. He was in the classic, and then he comes in this, and he's just like, he feels like he has to do it because that's his character, and he knows he has to. It's like he had to reread his lines again.
Yeah.
Because the shot for shot really ruins it for him.
Yeah.
It's not really James Earl Jones.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And also, while I like Donald Glover's performance fine as Simba, again, it's really just the fact that the way that they delivered their lines and the way that there really was nothing to their personality, if that makes sense. And also, it has to factor in the fact as well that when you see the animals on screen, because there's a lack of emotional features to them, we're supposed to be having scenes like the original animated film that are supposed to be, heartwarming and emotional. Here, I felt like I was watching fucking paint dry on a fucking wall because there was a lot of.
Right? It's like watching Look Who's Talking with animals.
Yeah, I was like,
some of the mouths do move, but it's just like like moving a dummy's mouth while you're talking.
Yeah,
it's like, oh my god.
And it's a shame because Jon Favreau was able to capture, animal-like features with emotions and stuff in Jungle Book, but here he was going for a more realistic approach, and to me, I thought that the direction didn't work because everyone was taking it so serious, but it counteracts with the tone as well, because you have musical numbers that would only work if it's in an animated feature, or if it's in, if the characters actually had facial features and actually, show emotion.
Yeah, I know. It was like you said. It was kind of like a Look Who Talking type thing.
Yeah.
And what was with them playing that? Can you feel the love tonight in the daytime?
I know that didn't make no sense. I was like, it's pretty fucking broad.
Scenes that remind me of some kind of love singing scenes from like a Lifetime show where they just shows them just running through the wood, like grass and shit. I'm like, what the fuck? It's like a soap opera-ish.
Yeah.
What's up with this scene?
Yeah, not
all
just
the cuts.
Yeah, throughout the entire film, I was just, I was really bored. I was.
And that part where Mufasa dies, it is so blanded over to how he dies. I actually didn't even shed a tear. I was like, oh.
Right.
You're talking about the scene where it was like probably the most teary-eyed Disney film of all time, and literally, everybody's just like, okay.
Yeah, and it didn't help too the fact that they even do the same panning back when it shows like Simba's reaction. Again, if it would have showed more detailed emotional features, that could have worked better. But unfortunately, when it's panned back, all you can see is just a blank fucking face of him of just screaming.
Yeah, I know, right? I saw that too. I was like, what the fuck? I'm like, this is like, what is this, like fucking mind readers?
Yeah, I mean, it's like watching that.
Not only that, you could probably thank it because you're already bored. You still gotta bash it though. Con here. It seems like every thing that the 94 had, it's like everything classic. It seems like they rushed through this movie.
They did.
Like, it's just like, let's hurry up and get to the end.
Which is weird because
so every singing point and every whatever is cut in half. That's basically the difference. It's like, okay.
Well, and it's like also
the part where even Simba grows up and the beginning of the film is not really that far apart.
No, I mean it takes a little longer to get there than the original version did, because in the original version the shit really got to the fan about.
Felt like it went fast.
Well, the original film, it at least like got to about 35, maybe 40 minutes. This one, they take almost about an hour to get there, because you also have the scenes where Simba's running away from the hyenas and stuff, and when we get to that point, it's almost an hour into the movie.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I get what you're saying. It's very choppy the way it's rushed over.
The movie is very hard to pay attention to.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah, but I mean, and this is the same because, I like Jon Favreau's director, but out of the films that I've seen him direct, I haven't seen The Jungle Book, but it's such a really step down than what he could have done with this, I really wish.
Exactly. To me, what pretty much sums up his direction in this, what he went with, like the writing and, the screenplay, how everything's said, the lines and all that, I just felt like he got lazy with this. I think he wanted it to be done so his name is on it as, I was the one who did it.
Yeah.
I was the director of that. And it's just like, instead of actually focusing on making something good, he was just like, I don't know what to do. Let's just go line for shot.
Yeah. So with that being said, like, there's more, this was, definitely one of the most, like, disappointing movies of the year for me, and with that, I'm going to have to give this movie I thought about it hard, and I was thinking to myself, like, it's probably not going to be on my worst of list, but if it comes to, like, an honorable, dishonorable mention, it might possibly on there if there's anything else that's, on there. But because the movie was just so forgettable, I'm probably going to give the movie just a maybe a high disaster on the Film Freaks meter.
Yeah. To me, I didn't think it was that bad to say that it was down in those like levels. And I think I am being nice, even though I'll never probably watch it again ever. I'm gonna go a extremely low average Joe rating.
Fair enough. For those of you who have also seen The Lion King and also the original animated 94 version, let us know in the comments below what you thought about it. And if you like what you see here, you can feel free to like and subscribe to our channels and check out some of the reviews here and our website at filmfreaks.com. And we'll be seeing you in our next review. We'll see you later.